Hey everyone, welcome to another Football Scoop online clinic session. Really excited to have a good friend of mine here in Michigan that does some pretty unconventional things to share some ideas on ways to build a football program the unconventional way. So I want to give Coach Farley all the time that he needs to get through everything. So with that, I want to hand it off to Jackson High School head coach Scott Farley. Coach Farley, it's all yours.
All right. Thanks, Doug. This is really an honor for me to do this, to kind of represent our school and our program, our coaching staff, and to kind of give people just a little bit of a glimpse of our program that we're really, really proud of at Jackson High School. You can see on this slide, I'm also the executive director of the Michigan High School Football Coaches Association. My email's on there. My Twitter is on there. If you have questions, because we're not live anymore, if you have questions, feel free to send me an email or hit me up on Twitter, and I'll be glad to get back with you. As I went through this, put this together, I did this presentation probably 5 years ago or more, about more than that, probably 8 years ago. And what I'm discovering is that really what we do isn't as unconventional as I think it is, because I'm old. I've coached for 32 years. I was a head coach at Leslie High School for 20 years. And Leslie, I got to realize I'm talking to people that might not be Michigan people. So Leslie's a small rural high school, about between 420 and 460 student enrollment, the 20 years that I was there. And then after 20 years there, made the move and went to Jackson High School, which is a school about 15 miles south of Leslie, 1,200 students, and it's an urban school in a very rural county. We're the biggest school in the county, and really the rest of the schools around us, with a couple of exceptions, are small rural high schools. So the diversity that we have at Jackson High School is a lot more significant than people think. And when people think of Jackson High in our area, because we're urban and because we do have African American kids, their perception of Jackson High is that we're 95% African American, and that's really not the case. Not that that would be a problem if it was, but the reality is that we're about 50% white, about 40% African American, and then another 10% Hispanic and Asian and Middle Eastern, and just a whole diverse melting pot at Jackson High. That's a really cool thing. So we have racial diversity. We also have extreme socioeconomic diversity. I've got kids in my program that live in $2 million mansions, and I have kids that are homeless. And the education level of the parents is a wide range. I've got parents that didn't graduate from high school, and I've got parents that are cardiac surgeons. Academic level of the kids, I've got kids that are taking Calc 2 and 3 as seniors, and I've got pretty profoundly special education students. So we've got a lot of diversity, which creates some challenges in developing a program. And I think some of the things that we do that are a little bit different than what a lot of people do help us to do that. So to give you an overview of what we're going to look at, we do some scheme and football tactics things that Doug kind of alluded to that are unconventional, that people are usually interested in. And quite frankly, in terms of their contribution to our success, I would say they're a lot less significant than some of the other things that we do. But I think it is important that we talk about them, and because people are interested in it, and I do think it does make a difference in our program. The next one I think is the most important is our staff development and retention. We do some things that I think really help us in that regard, that has helped us be successful at both Leslie and Jackson. Both of those schools had Leslie had been a long time losing program, and we took it over, and it took us a while to get it rolling, but had by far the most successful 20-year span in the history of the school. And then in the 7 years we've been at Jackson, they had been down for several years, and 2 of the last 4 years at Jackson, we've broken the school record for wins. And in 2015, we broke every school record there was offensively, and broke the scoring record by an average of 10 points a game. Have had a lot of success. Next is our player development. We do some unusual things in player development that I think you'll find interesting. And then some things in program organization that I think maybe aren't as unconventional as they might have been 10 or 12 years ago. But I think some of the things we do and the way we do them might give you some ideas to put together. And I always think to my first clinic that I ever went to was the old Nike clinic in Grand Rapids. And the first clinic talk I ever went to, I walked in there, 23 years old, thought I knew everything there was to know about football. And Spike Dykes from Texas Tech was the speaker, and he said, the thing that makes football coaching hard is that there's two things that everybody in the world's qualified to do, and that's raise kids and coach football. So that makes it hard. But what struck me also in that very same meeting is sitting in the front row, furiously taking notes of everything that he said was Al Fracassa, who at the time was the winningest coach in the history of the state of Michigan. And it struck me then as a young person that if he was taking notes, I should be taking notes, and that we can always learn. And I hope you can find at least one thing out of this talk that you can take with you. So we'll get rolling with the scheme stuff. Like Doug said, we are a part of the cult, the Kevin Kelly cult. We believe we call it no punt, but we do punt a little bit, and we do onside kick or prepare to onside kick every single time. And the reason for doing that, and that could be a whole clinic talk in itself, and so it won't go real in depth, but basically it's using statistics on field positions, impact on scoring, to make the decision that it's illogical to punt in almost every situation. The yardage that you gain by punting the ball in terms of field position does not have a big enough effect on the opponent's scoring for you to do it. And so we punted 4 times during the regular season this last year, which I think is more than we have in other years, but we don't punt very often. And likewise, for the same reason, it's illogical to kick off deep. And I guess part of it, too, that doesn't get talked about a lot is risk aversion. The negative things that can happen when you punt, and the negative things that can happen when you kick off deep, even if you've got a great kicker that can kick the ball inside the 5-yard line consistently. You give up one long touchdown, or you give up one really bad field position situation, and that does make a big difference. So that's what we do, and it impacts, I think, our opponent's prep time. They have to spend a lot of time practicing recovering onside kicks that you might practice 2 or 3 reps on a Thursday. I think most of the people we play spend time every day during that week, and that's either got to increase the amount of practice time or reduce their prep time in other areas, which I think is important for us. And like I said before, it reduces and eliminates the chance of giving up big plays, which everybody knows big plays, particularly in high school football, impacts winning, and converting on 4th downs or recovering an onside kick is the equivalent of a turnover, which also impacts winning. So in terms of, we do it because we feel like it's the best way to help us win football games, and without getting too deep into the statistics, it's really difficult to explain it. But hopefully, if you have more questions about that, I'd be glad to talk with you about it. And Kevin Kelly's got a million videos and things online that you can check that out as well. The other thing we do, which is also a Kevin Kelly thing to some degree, is 2-point conversions. I tell my kids and my staff and the parents and fans that the biggest reason we go for 2 is because 2 is more than 1. And I'm a PE major, but I do know that 2 is more than 1. And so that's part of it. And because 2 is more than 1, 50% on 2-point conversions is equal to 100% on kicked extra points. And I know a lot of teams do very, very well kicking extra points, and we've had teams that did very well kicking extra points. But the reality is nobody's 100%, or very, very few people are 100% at the high school level. And so if we can be 50%, we're doing as good or better. And this philosophy kind of came about naturally because we weren't very good at kicking for many years. When I was at Leslie, we either couldn't kick or hold or snap or block, or we just weren't very good at that, so we went for 2 out of necessity. But what we've discovered over time is that if you practice it regularly, and we have a 5-minute 2-point conversion period every year, that's our 1s against 1s, where we really practice using the rules. Now, and I'm going to explain the rules through two semifinal appearances that we had in 2007 and 2008 that exemplify the difference between a 2-point conversion play and a regular play. In 2007, we played Blissfield High School and lost in double overtime in the state semifinals. And it was one of those games where there was probably 10 or 12 plays that if any one of them had gone our way, we would have won the game, but none of them did. And one of them was a 2-point conversion play that was kind of an off-tackle counter play that our best running back carried the ball and got tackled with the ball securely up against his side, like he had been taught since a third grader to have good, 5 points of pressure and all that tucked up against his side. And the ball was 3 inches short of the goal line. Where if he would have done what we had not coached him to do his whole life and reached the ball over the line, we would have won the game and gone to the state finals. Well, in evaluating that play, we took a new approach to 2-point conversions, is that you do not get tackled on the field. You do not take a sack. You do not run out of bounds. You are going to pitch the ball as many times as you need to pitch the ball to get the ball across the line. And if the other team, if you turn the ball over, the play is dead. You don't give up points in the high school game with high school rules. And so we began the next season practicing pitching the ball, and we do that in practice, and it'll get pretty crazy sometimes. And we've had situations in the game where we pitched the ball 5, 6, 7 times on a 2-point conversion to try to get the ball across the line. And in the 2008 semifinal game, our best running back got stopped at the 1-yard line, turned around, pitched the ball back to the quarterback who ran it in for the 2-point conversion. We're consistently over 50%, maybe not in individual games, but over the course of a season, we're always way above 50%. And even when we've had good kickers, which we've had for the last several years in Jackson, we always do it for the first couple touchdowns to force conventional kicking extra point teams to get out of their normal procedure. And I can't tell you how many times we won games by 9 points because we forced teams to get out of their normal extra point kick routine. The last thing in terms of scheme, our current head coach, offensive coordinator responsibility breakdown. I am the head coach. Rob Dillon is our offensive coordinator and has been for the last 3 years. He does a great job as the offensive coordinator, and connected to those previous slides, we go for it on 4th down a lot, and we go for 2 a lot. And I make those decisions like most head coaches would. But we made the decision after the first year of Rob taking over as offensive coordinator that the head coach needed to call those plays. And it just makes sense. If I'm going to make that decision to go for it on 4th down, I should be making that. I should be accountable for that decision and not just say, hey, let's go for it, Rob, figure it out. So I think that's a little bit different than what a lot of people handle that. And I think it's been really important for our success the last couple of years. So staff development and retention, I think, is really the most important part of all this, and where we've had the most success, both in Leslie and in Jackson, is retaining staff. I've got guys on my current Jackson staff that were with me, have been with me for 25 years since I was at Leslie. And a big reason for that is we have these after game parties, which I think a lot of people do. They get together after games and maybe go to a bar or restaurant or go to a coach's house. We've gone to for years in Leslie. We always went to our house after the game because we lived in Leslie. And we always included the wives and the kids, the coaches' kids. And I think that has connected families to the program and to each other. And I think that has helped us retain coaches because it increases the buy-in of the families and reduces the resentment for all the time that you're away. And so it's been really, really good for us in terms of keeping coaches, and the wives look forward to getting together at the games and after the games together. And they've really built a lot of good camaraderie, and the coaches can kind of decompress after a long week of preparation and a stressful game and just enjoy each other's company and not really worry about game prep, or just kind of enjoy each other. And develop that friendship that I think has been really important for us. And that friendship has branched out into other things. The coaches' wives decided about 10 years ago that they should go away, like we go away on coaches clinics, that they should go away for the weekend. And so they started Coaches Wives Weekend, where they go and basically drink wine and sit in their pajamas and watch Hallmark movies and order Christmas presents on Amazon. But that's really been a great thing for them, and it's gone on to several different venues over the course of 10 or 12 years. And it's something they really look forward to, and something that's been really good. In Jackson, 2 years ago, we started, because of the after parties, we got to the last game, and when one of my assistant coaches said, hey, I'm going to miss you guys getting together and being together. We need to find a way to do that in the off season. So the third Thursday of every month, 12 months out of the year, we get together at a barbecue place in town that has 70 or 60 cent wings on Thursday nights and $1.50 drafts. And we get together and just talk and catch up on each other's lives. And we've also, the old staff in Leslie, the coaches and wives, get together and do some summer vacation trips that we're going to New Orleans for the second time this summer. So that's kind of cool. So I've got some pictures as we go along. Here's a picture of the coaches' wives, not on their weekend, but after a game. You can see these are ladies that enjoy each other's company and love the Jackson football family. This is not a coach's wife. This is Corey Slater's 12-year-old daughter. So you don't think that any of my coaches are robbing the cradle. This is a picture at Buffalo Wild Wings. I said in Jackson, or in Leslie, we always went to my house. In Jackson, for home games, we go to my in-laws' house that live in Jackson. Away games, we get back a little bit later, so we go to this is Buffalo Wild Wings, and you can see everybody there waiting patiently, probably to be waited on at the Jackson Buffalo Wild Wings. And then this is a picture from Third Thursday. You can see a plate of wings and $1.50 draft here. And this is David Winters, my defensive line coach, doing a professional development with a couple of the waitresses at Rocky Top. And then here's a group picture of our last trip to New Orleans. This group's going to go again to New Orleans this summer for 3 or 4 days, and that's a great trip. All right. The next staff development thing that we did, we've done this a couple times over the course of time. We did it last year in Jackson. It's by far the best staff activity we've ever done. We went together as a staff and stayed in a bed and breakfast, and we did some football stuff, got some good quality work done, but more importantly, just spent time together in the off season. We did this last year at the end of May, and we're planning to do it again the beginning of June, I think, this year. But we played golf and cornhole and played some cards, and we tried to incorporate the middle school staff, and we may try to do that again. It's harder to get those guys committed because they're going in a million different directions, but hopefully we'll be able to do that this year. And I've got a few pictures of the staff retreat, and if you've got any questions about that, feel free to ask there. A few of the guys are lounging around in between activities. And then you can see here's a picture of my guys at the driving range getting ready to play golf. Not many golfers in this group, but they do know how to have a good time, that is for sure. And they're looking forward to that again this coming year. The last thing, and this is, Doug and I just kind of talked about this before, one of the things that we've always done is during the season, we're not a grind up coaches and spend a lot of time and meet. We don't bring the kids in Saturday mornings, and we don't have staff meetings, and in the mornings on Saturday, we give coaches completely Saturday off. Let them watch college football, go to their kids' youth league games, spend time with the family, just decompress. And if you get a few an hour here or an hour there to watch some film, I know, and all of our guys do it different. I think my offensive coordinator stays up Friday night and doesn't go to bed Friday night, and Rob watches film or breaks down film from Friday night and gets all that done then. And I think I've got some other guys that might do a similar thing, but everybody kind of does it on their own schedule. And then Sundays, we bring the kids in at 4:30 and watch the film of Friday night's game and put that to bed and be done with Friday night's game. And then from that point on, everything's pointed for next week's game. And our coaches have met at 6. And that meeting has lasted till maybe 9 o'clock, about a 3-hour meeting, but we're looking for ways. Doug Samuels had a great article on Football Scoop about this a month or so ago that we're really exploring, and it's had a practice meeting this last Sunday using Google Meet, but we're looking at possibly using Slack and Google Meet as a way to shorten up our staff meeting or eliminate it altogether on Sunday. So Moving on now to player development, one thing that I do think we do that is very unconventional, that we're really proud of, and we've done it from Leslie and Jackson for probably 15 years now, is we do a boot camp conditioning program. In Michigan, the week before the official start of practice, you're not allowed to do anything with footballs. Anything you do is got to be strictly conditioning. And so for years, we did kind of traditional, cone drills and 40-yard dashes and distance runs and push-ups and sit-ups and kind of traditional conditioning kinds of things. And then we saw a clinic talk. I can't even remember who it was, but talked about their boot camp program. And we have on our staff, Bob Kinney, our wide receiver coach, is a former Marine, and he's also a former corrections department boot camp drill instructor. And so he's kind of taken that on as his baby, and he runs that for us. And for 2 hours a night, for 4 nights that week before practice starts, we do our boot camp. And basically the kids are put into groups. Each grade level's in a group, and it changes every day. So it kind of forces them to meet new guys and meet guys. They don't put all the seniors in one group or all the freshmen in one group. And we do a lot of non-traditional workout stations, and I've got some pictures of it, some of the stuff that we do. But we also teach them how to march in formation, which Bob is acutely trained to do as a boot camp drill instructor. And so the big purpose of that is it teaches them something they don't already know. So they're learning something new, and they do it oftentimes at the end of the workout. So they have to concentrate when they're tired, and they have to listen to one voice. They can't be talking amongst each other. They have to learn and train their minds to listen to one voice, which is very important in a football situation. So I think that's a really important part. And each workout ends with a group competition that I'll show you a couple of those pictures of those. And at the end of the week, kids get a boot camp t-shirt, which is usually a non-traditional school color. It's usually drab green or sand or a camo of some sort, kind of a military theme logo. And they get a popsicle at the end of every workout. And that's really kind of become a tradition. And it's amazing what a kid will do for a t-shirt and a popsicle. The amount of work that they do in this program is amazing. So here you can see marching, and this is probably the first day of boot camp, so you can see they're not very good at it. Their lines are not straight. They're not all on the same foot, but it's a learned skill that Bob works and does a great job of coaching them up. Here you can see them all. This is our stretching, which is a very regimented military style warm-up, very different than what we do during the season. Here's a sand carry. Kids fill up a 5-gallon bucket of sand at one end of the long jump runway, and they run 100 yards with a 5-gallon bucket full of sand, and then they dump it out, and then their partner fills it back up with a shovel and runs back, and they just spend their entire time running back and forth with buckets of sand. Here we're flipping tires, which has kind of become a thing. CrossFit, we've been doing it long before it was cool. And in this particular group of 3, you can see we've got our senior middle linebacker flipping the tire right there. Behind him is our junior running back. And with his back to us is a sophomore nose guard. So you can see we've got all three groups, or all 3 grades represented in that one subgroup. Now you can see some younger, smaller guys back here that are looking super skeptical about this whole tire flipping thing. It's not going quite as well for them as it is for these guys. And you can see our coach, Antonio Parker, our defensive coordinator, has got guys on the stairs. That's a separate group up there. Hitting tires with sledgehammers. We bought sledgehammers my first year in Jackson. They last forever. We only use them for a week, and they get a lot of good use in a lot of different ways. And here, this I think is probably borderline child abuse. I hope nobody sends this to Child Protective Services. They are actually doing a wheelbarrow race up the bleachers. That's difficult. And you can see that's a last day of camp shirt there in a drab green camp shirt. Battle ropes. We just bought some battle ropes a couple years ago, so we're using them. This is the last night this last year where they had an orange shirt, which is our school colors, but the logo was camo, which is kind of cool. And here's towel wrestling. Both guys have 2 hands on just a bath towel, and they wrestle to try to get the towel out of the other guy's hands. So a lot of tough physical work, out of the ordinary stuff they don't normally do in a normal workout program. And so tug of war, the first night of boot camp, tug of war is the traditional competition, and you can see here they're getting after in a tug of war, and the coaches get fired up, and they all pick a group that becomes their group, and so the coaches get as competitive as the kids do. And then this is the final night. They've got their boot camp shirts on that last night, and you can see here they are doing the dizzy bat relay. Probably seen it at minor league baseball games. You put a baseball bat upwards on the ground, and they put their forehead on it and spin around the bat 10 times and then run 20 yards and back. And you can see here, this is about a 6'5", 250-pound offensive tackle that's about to go down because he has completely lost his bearings from running around the bat. All right, so player development part 2 is we go to team camp every year or have it at our school one way or the other, and one of the things that we do with the kids is have them tell their story. And the coaches and kids tell their story, hardship and all, to the whole group. And what that has done is a number of things. One of the problems that we discovered my second year in Jackson was that there was a lack of trust amongst the kids and the coaches, mostly that the kids didn't trust the coaches out of them really not understanding and not knowing the coaches and having a kind of a bad preconceptions about race and socioeconomic status and so on, that once they discovered our story as coaches, they realized pretty soon that they could begin to trust the coaches because regardless of race, everybody kind of goes through the same thing. So the kids get some experience public speaking, and they can feel the support of their teammates and coaches. This has really been really important in our program in terms of developing close relationships between coaches and kids, because everybody kind of makes themselves vulnerable, and you get to know a little bit. And this year we're actually going to change it. I got an idea from a John Gordon book that I just read during this little break we've got going on, that instead of just telling their story, they're going to have a more focused assignment, and they're going to talk about their hero, their hardship, and their highlight of their life. So that's really been important. And if you can find a way to do that in your program, I think you'll find a lot of benefit from doing that. A new thing that we've done, this is program development now, the last phase of our talk here, and we started this last year. We decided after the season, as a way to kind of introduce the freshmen to our program, as we're going to do freshman football orientation, and we're going to invite all the 8th graders and their families in, and we're going to feed them a cookout dinner, which is important because moms are the ones you really got to convince to let their kids play football. And I think the fact that they can say, hey, I don't have to cook dinner tonight, let's go check out this football thing, maybe you ought to play football, it has had a little bit of value. But I had the privilege of speaking at a Glazier clinic on a panel discussion about program development, and the coach from Olentangy Liberty High School did the same thing, but he kind of took it a next level. And so we did the same thing, as they treat it like a college recruiting visit. And so we bring all these middle school kids in, these 8th graders, and we treat them like they are being recruited. And they're all from our own public high school, so they're just our guys, and they're all going to come to our school anyway. But we give them, fancy name badges on a lanyard, and our current players take them on a tour of the school and the athletic facility, and our graduating seniors speak and kind of encourage them and talk about the value of our football program. When the kids are off on the tour, our coaching staff talks to the parents and talks about what our program philosophy is, that we're about developing young men and making great fathers and husbands and members of our community, that we're about developing people more than football players. And then at the end of the night, the kids actually sign a letter of intent that they're going to play football at Jackson High. Another important element to this is that we invite our cheerleaders to come, and they check the kids in when they arrive and give them their name badge and lanyard. And if there's anything that encourages a 14-year-old boy to do something, is to have a 17-year-old girl there that welcomes them in and encourages them and makes them think it's important to be a football player. So if you're going to do it, I would definitely include the varsity cheerleaders. So here's some pictures. This is the badge that we gave the kids that they get their name on. This young man is one of the most popular guys in our program that's come out of our program. He graduated in 19, playing at Albion College now. And we've also got a picture of our city championship trophy that doesn't exist anymore because we won it from the Catholic school in town and they won't play us anymore. So, you know, that gives them a keepsake that they take home. I think most of the kids have them hanging in their bedrooms, and they thought that was a really cool piece. And seriously, it cost us about $20 to have those printed and laminated. Here's one of our senior linebackers, a 4.0 valedictorian, talking about the value of our program. And I want to point this guy out here. He's an interpreter for a hearing impaired young man that we have in our program. And, you know, it just speaks to the diversity again of our program and the kids that are in the program. Here's two of our freshmen posing for pictures. We have the school athletic backdrop up so they can take pictures and kind of make a big photo op of the whole thing. And then here's Brady Dillon signing his letter of intent. Brady really didn't have much of an option. His dad's the offensive coordinator, but you know, all the kids sign those and they think it's a pretty big deal. So you know, if you're going to do that, that's a great small piece to the big puzzle that is really cool with that event. Another program development thing that I think a lot of people do anymore is a women's clinic, and we did these back in Leslie a few times, and we've done it the last few years in Jackson. If you're not doing it, you should. We invite all the moms and grandmas or anybody, any female in town really, but especially the ones that have an impact on the young man's decision to play football. We really want to include them, and we bring them in. This actually gets run at the same time as boot camp's going on at the other side of the bleachers. We do this in the baseball field behind our football stadium, and we introduce them to our program and our program's philosophy. We talk about again what we're all about, and they get a sense of who we are and what the value of their son's participation in our program is. We do an equipment demonstration that we'll talk about or show you some pictures of. Our trainer comes in and talks about player safety, because those are issues that everybody's always concerned about anymore, of how we take care of kids and what our concussion protocol is and all those kinds of things. One year I had an official come in, and the moms really enjoyed that, talking about what the rules are and what the role of the official is. And then we take the moms out on the field and we teach them the positions in an offense and defense, and we teach them a few of our base plays. And so here's the t-shirt we give them. Again, a t-shirt, a popsicle. Everybody loves a t-shirt, so the moms really enjoy their t-shirt. Here's we bring in one of our young men, and they do he starts off basically in his skivvies, and he puts on his equipment. I'm over here on the side doing a cost analysis and talking about how much each piece of equipment costs, so they have a sense of the commitment that our school district has to their son's safety in regards to how much the equipment costs and how much it costs to suit up every player. And here we are out on the field, getting ready to run outside zone. And I got everybody at their son's position. I mean, this mom here is a quarterback's mom, and the center is a center's mom. One to keep an eye on is the left guard here. She's not there because her kids play left guard. Her husband played left guard. That's my wife, and she had a lot of questions. And here you can see she had questions about what is holding, and so we went through a little demonstration about what is holding, and she asked a lot of really good questions. She's been in a lot of football games, and she's the greatest coach's wife on the planet. The next thing we do, which I think a lot of people do, but we do it a little bit different, is we run a youth football clinic, and we run it in conjunction with our city's rec department. In Jackson, all youth football is run through the City of Jackson rec department. And I'm fortunate that my defensive coordinator is the head of youth football with the rec department. He's a rec department employee. We do this on a Saturday early in the season. It's always been after one of our Friday night games. And our players come in and they coach their own position. We give them a practice plan. They coach their position. It's all skill work in all three phases of the game, and we basically run every kid through every position. So we run 4 groups of offense, 3 groups of defense, and 4 groups of special teams, and they get about a 7 or 8 minute period to run 3 or 4 drills with every kid, and they have a great time. It's completely free. As is our rec football program, by the way. We're very, very fortunate that the rec department fully funds that through some fundraising efforts and a millage. So our kids in Jackson don't pay anything to play youth football. And we ran it in conjunction with a cheerleading camp this last year. My defensive coordinator's wife is one of the cheerleading coaches, and so they worked together to put this camp together. So you can see here, nobody's having more fun in this picture than Mac, one of our wide receivers that's working with some receivers in this drill. He or Jack Slater here, I think, are both having a good time. And you can see some offensive linemen working with the barrels. And then we've got a young quarterback doing drop on a line drill that our quarterbacks do almost every day. And then here's the camp picture. You can see how many kids we service this year and how many of our players come back voluntarily on a Saturday after a Friday night game. And we got a ton of cheerleaders. And then we also do a youth football night at one of our games, which I know a lot of you guys do. But we had this picture taken with all the youth cheerleaders and the youth players, and this was on a billboard in Jackson. It was a really cool deal. All right. One of the things that I've done every year, I'm a head coach. We do a midnight practice, and I know a lot of guys do that as well. It's not super unconventional, but we've seen it develop into a bigger thing than it is in a lot of places, not so much in Jackson, but at Leslie. The kids really look forward to it. It's varsity only. We don't bring in the underclassmen kids. We've done that before, and it's hard to get them rides at 1:30 in the morning. So it's a lot easier. We just manage the 45 or so guys we have on the varsity. They report at 10:30 to get their equipment, and then we have a meeting, and then we go out and we practice. And it's a really cool practice in Jackson. There's just a few parents, and the coaches' wives come, but the kids have a great time. I've got some pictures of it here in just a minute. Now in Leslie, one of the things that we did, I stole an idea from Mark Raskowski, who was the coach at one of our rival schools, our week 1 opponent, and he did a parent meeting at 10:30 p.m. on Sunday, right before the midnight practice that he did, and we started to do that. And what started to happen is the coaches meeting or the parent meeting would break up about 11:30, and a lot of the parents started to stay for the midnight practice. And it got to the point where we would have 200 plus people at the midnight practice. And then that led into what ended up being called the Black Hawk Bash. And it was a kind of a day-long party that started at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And they had, rock bands and barbecue wagons, and it was just a big party. So if you're able to combine that 10:30 parent meeting with it, you can really turn that midnight practice into a big deal. So here you can see we run down the scoreboard clock down to midnight, and when it strikes midnight, they come charging out of the tunnel at the request of that left guard I was talking about earlier. She likes to see the boys run out of the tunnel rather than just start practice like we normally do, but that's a really cool thing that we do. And here's just some drills under the lights, and you can see Coach Kinney working with the receivers there. And it's not just a walk-through, screw-around practice. You can see some Coach Karanis Davis has got the DBs working over there. A couple of these guys are thinking I should have maybe done a little more running over the summertime, but it's a lot of fun. And the next program development thing I've got is our Pink Viking project. We started this in Leslie, stole this idea, didn't stole it, he gave it to us. Noel Dean from Lowell High School. 1 game every year, we honor cancer survivors, victims, and those currently battling cancer with the jersey. We play that game for them, and it's a whole week of really talking to the kids about this is not about us, it's about the people whose names are on the back of your jerseys. And we raise money for a fund at our local hospital that gives direct financial support to families in active cancer treatment. You can see some of the things that money is raised goes towards. We sponsor, the jerseys are sponsored for $150, and we sell T-shirts for $10 that are their ticket into the game. In Leslie, we started before I left at Leslie, and in the 8 years they've done it in Leslie, they've raised over $140,000. And in Jackson, we've done it for 6 years, and we've raised over $40,000 in Jackson to help. And it goes strictly, it's not, it goes strictly to support local families in active cancer treatment. And I've got some pictures of that. After team meal, we get together out in the courtyard and take a team picture in our pink jerseys. Our equipment guy, John Duncan, who's the single most important guy in our program, stays overnight Thursday night after practice and puts pink wings. We have orange Michigan wings on our helmets, and he replaces the orange wings with pink wings. And so we're grateful for his commitment to the project. This is my favorite picture of all time from the Pink Viking game. This is Dakota again, the guy that was on our name badge, but this is my wife's aunt, Aunt Janine, who was very near the end of her life fighting cancer at this time, and her family. Really cool thing. And we also got my mom back here photobombing, also sitting in the bleachers. So it was a really cool night and very emotional, as you might guess. Here's some of that emotion. Our middle linebacker with a big interception and our defensive coordinator celebrating. You can see how excited they are at this game. And we have a rocket school that gets painted. Here's my family. Mike Martin, his mom actually works for the hospital and got us connected with the foundation that we give the money to. And Mike played in honor of my dad, who had prostate cancer when he passed away. And you can see Coach Harrison and his wife back here photobombing our picture as well. And at the end of the game, the players give the jerseys to the people that they're playing in honor of, which is a very emotional, a very cool part of the event. So if you have any questions about Pink Viking and how you could do it at your school, we've done helped a lot of other schools get that started, and we'd be glad to do that for you as well. And here we are at the hospital just a couple of weeks ago with a check presentation. This is me and the CEO of the hospital. And we got a few of our players and coaches' wives and things that are on the committee, and some of the folks that work in the oncology department at the hospital. All right. So the last couple things I'm going to kind of skip over. We're running out of time. I'm going to skip over the combined practice and staff thing. Testing day that we do down here is kind of a cool thing. The Friday after Memorial Day, we bus all the 8th graders up to the high school, and we test every kid, grades 8 through 11, in height, weight, vertical jump, 40-yard dash, and bench press, and pro shuttle. And that we use that also as an organizational tool. We sign lockers at the stadium and distribute helmets. And so we get 90% of all that stuff knocked out before we get out of school and before we start camp that next week. So that's an important thing that we do. We do a team meal like most people, but we do it right after school. I think a lot of people do their team meal the night before. We do it because we want the kids to get a good meal the night before, or before the game, not the night before, but get a good meal after school before the game. And they're not off running around. We have them right from the time school gets out to team meal to a meeting, and we've got them. And one of the things that we do, we started probably my second or third year in Jackson. We've done it ever since. It's been really good. Is when we assign lockers, we don't do it numerically. We don't do it by letting the kids choose where they want a locker next to their buddies. It's completely alphabetical. And so they are assigned their locker alphabetically. And so you might have a junior defensive back lockering next to a senior offensive tackle, guys that they don't hang around with. And it's been really good in terms of developing camaraderie and just getting to know kids that you didn't already know and build that team. Leadership Council, I won't go into a lot of depth there, but because I know a lot of guys do that, but that's been an important piece of what we've done as well. And then I'd really be remiss if I didn't mention Maceo Moore and LaJuan Bramlett, and I'll just leave this up and you can read it. Maceo was killed in a car accident in the spring before his senior year. And if anybody out there wants to write a book that would train high school coaches, is prepare them for this situation, because nobody is prepared for it, and it was a really difficult situation that our program was in. And basically, we just loved the kids, loved on the kids as much as we could, and gave them a safe place. And we still honor Maceo. Maceo's locker is still off limits in our locker room, and will be forever. And then Lawan Bramlett was a great player for us that made some bad decisions and got himself in a bad situation and was near death for a long time. And it's just, I think it was important for us to note that in terms of unconventional and difficult situations, those are two things that we've gone through just in the 7 years that I've been in Jackson. And if you ever need advice when you're going through those situations, reach out to other coaches and reach out to other people and help you through those difficult times. So here's my contact information again. Feel free to contact me anytime. Again, I'm the head coach at Jackson High School, and I'm also the executive director of the Coaches Association. So we'd love to. We're grateful for the opportunity, and I'll tell you, I'm grateful for Football Scoop for doing this during this time, because it's a great time for people to develop themselves professionally. And I just want to encourage everybody to follow the guidelines. I just got word today that one of the fathers of one of our players, who was a great player at Jackson High himself and played at Western Michigan, is in a medically induced coma at the hospital in Jackson, fighting for his life with the coronavirus. And so it's a real thing, and we really need to do our part to keep it as contained as possible.
That's a great point, Scott.
That's all I got, Doug.
Yeah, I had one question come up, and I know, and I'm pretty sure you've done a whole clinic on the no punt deal, but I want to know how adopting that philosophy changes your play calling psychology, because now instead of 3 downs to get it, you really got 4. So how long does it take someone to kind of get used to that? And do you have any kind of tips for guys kind of kicking that idea around?
Well, it takes a while, and in the first few years, it was me calling the plays, so I was the one that was bought into the philosophy head and shoulders. But I've heard the phrase, and talking to someone else from the cult, the term he uses, it's liberating in terms of the way you call plays, and I think it makes you a lot more unconventional. People have to change what their 1st and 10 calls are on defense, because you're not always going to run the power on 1st down, because you can throw the ball deep on 1st and 10 because you're going to run 3 more plays to get 10 yards. And third and 8 is not a for sure passing down, because we might run the power on 3rd and 8 to get 4 yards or 5 yards. And because we know we're going to go for it on 4th down. And so I think for Rob Dillon, our offensive coordinator, it's a little bit of a learning curve when he started calling the plays, but I think we've really meshed that up pretty well these last few years, and he calls his 3rd down play knowing that there's a really good chance that we're going to go for it on 4th down.
Right. What about on defense? Does it change anything for you defensively as far as your thought process on things? Or?
I think we're probably a little more we're more of a speed defense, just from a kind of kid we get that plays defense, and so we're probably more of a blitzing, take chances kind of defense as a result of that. We're really built on turnovers, which is really kind of the philosophy as well. It's all about stealing possessions and using that stat probably first and foremost in all of our decision making is trying to win that turnover battle.
Yeah, that's great stuff. A lot of really great ideas, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time to join us, and look forward to connecting soon.